So what we do is we harvest the top of the kelp. So we basically mow the lawn because it's a kelp that forms a canopy. We mow the lawn, and from those snippings, we create a product which is a liquid seaweed extract. It's called a bio-stimulant, and that is used for agricultural land. So coastal communities around the world have known this for thousands of years. They would collect that smelly beach cast from the beach and they'd put it in their garden, and they'd have an amazingly rich and plentiful garden. What we're doing, we're taking that, we're creating biostimulant, and we're selling it to farmers that are in climate stressed areas. It's very good at increasing yield and increasing resilience to all of these climate stressors.
So hi everyone, welcome to the Blue Pioneers podcast, and on this episode I have with me Caroline Slootweg from Kelp Blue. Caroline's the co-founder of Kelp Blue and also the CEO of related company Kelp Blue Biotech. In addition to that, she's done a lot of ocean exploration herself and has spent time sailing around, I think, half of the world on the Clip Around the World race. So we can dig into a little bit of how her experiences on expeditions at sea have also fed into her world of running nature-based solutions startups. So Caroline, let's start with kelp, because that's what most of your life seems to be about at the moment. What is kelp, and why is there such a buzz about it at the moment? And why is things like kelp winning huge sustainability prizes for climate action when most of us think of it just as sort of slimy, slippery brown weeds on the seashore?
Yeah, no, exactly. Most people think it's the stinky stuff that they find on the beach. For some part of kelp's life, it can be that, but for the majority of what kelp's life, it's actually under the sea surface. And the reason why there's so much attention is because it has the capacity to do an enormous amount of planetary good. So I'm standing in front of I don't know if you can see the people are listening, but I've got a background of a kelp forest. So what kelp and what seaweed is, it's an organism that lives in the ocean, and all it needs is sunlight and the nutrients from the water to grow. And the kelp that we do, so we cultivate the kelp. We cultivate giant kelp, which is the largest seaweed on the entire planet. And we do that because just imagine these large seaweeds that go from the bottom of the ocean floor all the way up to the surface. So you can imagine that it can be up to 50 meters in height. And imagine it's like an underwater forest with a lot of leaves along the whole entire trunk. And what happens when you're in these underwater forests is that if you look and you're snorkeling, scuba diving around, you see an enormous amount of marine life. Because if you're in a forest, it provides a lot of protection. So a lot of fish go here to escape from predators, a lot of nursing fish, it's a nursery for juveniles. So it really is it's something that's called an ecosystem builder. So it has the ability to build up an enormously rich marine ecosystem. Not only that, that's one very good thing. The other thing is it's really very good at storing carbon because it grows incredibly quickly, but it's also good at sequestering carbon. So the seaweed that we grow naturally scoffs off, naturally lets go of its leaves. Those leaves get carried out deep to the ocean, and then they sink, and that is how the carbon is sequestered. Because anything that is very deep under a certain level is considered sequestered for a very, very long time. But that's not the only reason why kelp is having a lot of attention at the moment. It's because what you can do with kelp is also very beneficial. So what we do is we harvest the top of the kelp. So we basically mow the lawn because it's a kelp that forms a canopy. We mow the lawn, and from those snippings, we create a product which is a liquid seaweed extract. It's called a biostimulant, and that is used for agricultural land. So coastal communities around the world have known this for thousands of years. They would collect that smelly beach cast from the beach and they'd put it in their garden, and they'd have an amazingly rich and plentiful garden. What we're doing, we're taking that, we're creating biostimulant, and we're selling it to farmers that are in climate stressed areas. It's very good at increasing yield and increasing resilience to all of these climate stressors. That's sort of why you're seeing a lot of attention on sea. We're not the only ones.
Amazing. And I mean, are you seeing results, or what stage are you at in terms of actually turning this into a viable product that could be scaled to something beyond just sort of very small scale use, which I guess is where those previous use, I guess, has always been very local, very small scale. Is this something that can be scaled up to be mainstream and used to reform agriculture?
We certainly think so, and we have we're quite proudly now no longer a startup scale up. So what that means is we've basically proven everything from beginning to end. So we've proven that we can grow the seaweed in our hatchery. We have little kelp babies that we outplant. We've proven that it grows in the water. We've proven that it grows enormously well in the water. We have a pilot factory that is functioning. We are already producing our biostimulant product, and we already have sales. So because we've been able to prove everything from beginning to end, we have the funding, we can now go into that next phase of scaling that up. So what's interesting to also know is that our first farm is in Namibia. People say, well, in Namibia, why are you so far? Why don't you grow it in Europe? And that's because the species that we grow does not exist in the system. So we are only in places where the seaweed is already present in the current system. So Namibia is our first location where we have hectares, and we have 20 hectares in the water right now. We'll soon be scaling up to 800 and then to 6,000 if all goes well. So we're pretty close to being commercial scale. So we have everything, and we firmly believe it is a scalable solution. We also have operations in New Zealand. Just received our license in Alaska. So we're going to be growing this beautiful giant kelp in 2 more locations.
Amazing. Congratulations on the new license. That's fantastic news. I mean, so you're basically having to create a whole new supply chain around this then, as well as sort of growing the primary product. There must be some big sort of engineering challenges and things that people wouldn't necessarily think of when we think about, you just grow kelp and then put it on the field. Sort of, what are the things within actually turning that into a viable solution that are possibly some of the sort of hidden challenges that need to be addressed in that?
Well, I think it's inherent to all startups is that you have an idea and you think it's going to take you X amount of time, but it usually winds up taking double and it costs double. And we are much the same way. We are very ambitious. We like to work at speed. But the thing is, when you're working with Mother Nature, you can't push Mother Nature. So we're also beholden to how fast the seaweed grows and how quickly we can harvest it. We're also beholden to the weather window. So getting the structures that we put out into the ocean, it cannot be done when it is storming out on the water. So we have to wait for relative calm days. And we also, our structures are offshore. So quite often we have to make sure that the weather is quite nice. So we start motoring with the structures out at 6 p.m. And we only get to our location very early in the morning for us to drop those structures. So weather plays a very big role. It's not something we can change, as well as the growth. But then there are also challenges of setting up a factory and also trying to innovate. And I think this is inherent in anyone trying to innovate and do something different. You're bringing something forth that hasn't existed before. And when doing that, you always have to be prepared to quickly pivot, to find solutions where you didn't think solutions were possible. Also work with the resources that you have. And that takes a lot of creativity. And a lot of people say, what have the challenges been? But I think what's really typical for us at Kelp Blue is not really seen as a challenge. It's seen as a nice problem to solve. And we just, quite often, we just MacGyver it because our location is quite remote. And I'm really proud of what the team's able to achieve so far.
So what have been some of the key skill sets then that you've needed to build success in this space?
I don't know if it's necessarily a skill set. I think it's more of an attitude. We are all passionate about the planet. We're all passionate about building a company that is people and planet first. We all know that we need to do this together as a team because it's in an innovation and no one set up a successful seaweed company from beginning to end before. The guidebook hasn't been written. So it's more of a mental attitude that we look for of, okay, sometimes it doesn't go well, but we just pick ourselves up and go up. We celebrate our wins, but we also celebrate what our blockers are and things that don't go well, because you learn more from what doesn't go well. And by creating an atmosphere of being allowed to, make mistakes, it makes it a lot easier to get over it and just move forward.
Gosh, I can relate to that so hard. I've literally just come back from our practice expedition. We were out at sea for 5 days until midnight last night. The biggest value that we get from those practices are all of the things that we get wrong. And then we go, oh, okay, next time we need to do this and this and this. And actually, the reason that I'm so confident about our crew is that everybody came back, and rather than going, oh, that was hard, I didn't like it, or whatever, they go, that was something we could do better next time. Why don't we do this, this, and this? So I think that, yeah, that sort of mental attitude to challenges is absolutely critical, and a really nice. I see so many parallels between building a company in an absolutely new area where you're breaking barriers, you're pioneering. Actually, not just on the product side, but on it's a whole market that you're sort of building, and there's going to be challenges, and you've got to expect them, and you've got to sort of be ready to face them. And there's just so many parallels. You're involved in two different organizations. There's Kelp Blue and Kelp Blue Biotech. What's the difference between those organizations, and what is it that each one of them does?
Yeah. So Kelp Blue is essentially have two parts to our organization. One is the cultivation, the farming of the forest. So this has everything to do with the hatchery, so where we grow our kelp babies that go out onto the structures, to dropping the structures into the water, to maintaining healthy forest. The skill sets that are required there are very different from the skill sets and the requirements for harvesting, processing, and sales. So we've split the company in two. One is the forestry side, and then the other side is the biotech side. So biotech is all about harvesting, processing, R&D, and sales. That's it, essentially.
When did you first know that your life was going to revolve around seaweed?
I think I first knew that my life was going to revolve around the ocean before I knew it was going to revolve around seaweed. And I realized that I was working in Singapore, and I had a fantastic job and was very happy being in the region, but something just left me unfulfilled. I think it was the entrepreneurial and adventurous spirit inside me that wasn't getting enough attention. And I was reading an article in a magazine about a girl who was graduating from high school, and then she was going to do a round the world sailing race with an organization that sails around the world. And I thought, I read it, and I immediately knew that this was something that I needed to do. So a week later, I had resigned, and 2 weeks later, I had signed up, and 4 months later, I was in Portsmouth doing my sailing training. And
Wow.
that changed my life. So I sail. So it's a race that gets done once every 2 years. It's called the Clip Around the World. I didn't do the whole around the world. I did pretty much half of it, and that really opened my eyes to the beauty of the ocean.
Yeah, tell me a bit about what you learned through that expedition that equipped you for sort of moving forward into this part of your career.
Yeah, I think I learned an enormous amount. First, I learned that the ocean is so rich, and there's so much biodiversity in every ocean that it's just spectacular. So I spent many nights when I was up on deck during my watch, watching the phosphorescent blobs that were off the coast of Mexico, and just being mesmerized by it, and watching the dolphins light up as well. And learned that just it piques your curiosity, and learning about the weather, the different types of clouds. So intellectually, it was very stimulating because we had a library on board where we could look up what these phenomena were. I think working as a team, because you are working, so if you're racing, so it's not like you anchor in the middle of night and stop the boat. You're constantly working, which means you are together with a small team, and you're very far from land. So all you have is a team in your boat. So you learn to rely on your equipment quite a bit, and you need to maintain your equipment, but you also learn to rely on each other, because you're on an adventure. You're away from communication. Well, you do have satellite, but you're away from what the normal communication modes are. So no telephones or email, and you really have to work together to overcome anything that's thrown at you. And that can be anything from someone getting a food poisoning, which is very dangerous on a boat, to having extremely rough weather and having to batten down the hatches and do sail changes, to also the personal irritations that happen. I think learning how to deal with those and staying calm very much does help when you're a startup and trying to grow a business, because you're also trying to do something that is new, and you're trying to bring forth something that hasn't been done before, and you do it with a team. So if you can't rely on the team, you don't have a good team dynamic, then it's going to be very difficult to achieve your goal.
What would you have any advice from that expedition for our team that's about to set out on a rowing boat to spend a month or so at sea?
Yeah, if you feel the emotion level rising high, always count to 10. You don't want to say something or lash out and say hurtful that might fall the wrong way. Or if you do, then make sure that you're really able to talk about it. Bring a book along and get used to having alone time, even though you're around a lot of other people.
Great. Those are all brilliant pieces of advice. Thank you very much. So your career now and your business is working in nature-based solutions in the ocean. This feels very much like a new frontier, both in terms of the sort of business and the business model itself, but also in terms of really sort of using our ocean to build a sustainable blue economy, fundamentally. What would you say are some of the sort of, not challenges, but what are some of the unique factors about working in this space in the ocean specifically?
Well, I think I knew a little bit about the ocean, but I certainly didn't know as much as I do now. What really surprised me is that we know more about the moon than we know about our oceans. And if you look at some of the discoveries that have just been made, a few weeks ago, Schmidt released a video of what they had discovered at the bottoms of the trends, the depths of the ocean, and there are just so many new species that have just been uncovered. And it really is an uncharted territory. And it's worthwhile exploring because 70% of the planet is covered by the ocean. And the ocean is such an important factor in stabilizing our climate when it comes to weather, that if we don't have a healthy ocean, if we don't protect the ocean, if we don't learn more about the ocean, if we don't understand what role the ocean plays in planetary health, we won't have a healthy planet. So for me, it really was just astounding that there is still so little known. And the people that are passionate about the ocean are passionate about it. But we really need to try to get people that maybe don't live near the ocean, who haven't even seen what's under the blanket, passionate about it, because it is just such an important part of our planet.
I guess your comms background should help with Kelp Blue really being able to maximize the potential that you have to tell those stories and to engage other audiences in the ocean. Have you found that through the work that you're doing with farmers, for example, you've been able to help sort of make some of those links between the ocean and the land and sort of bring that narrative to a new audience?
Absolutely. And then how we do that, because essentially, I mean, if you look at it, we are farmers of the ocean. We cultivate and we care for kelp forests, and that is also something with the we harvest. So we are farmers of the ocean. Bringing that story to the farmers of the land and explaining to them, we also have to deal with Mother Nature. We are also very passionate about being outside. We'd rather be outside more. We don't like being behind our desks. We want to be out there. We want to be seeing what's happening. That helps awaken their eyes and open their eyes to, oh, wow, okay, they're farmers of the ocean. I'm a farmer. So then creating that connection makes it a lot easier to trade the stories. And then once you have established that relationship, then the knowledge and the story exchange is just phenomenal, because in the end, being an ocean farmer is not that much different from being a land farmer.
So I guess sort of slightly related to that, there's three questions that I like to ask all of our guests on the podcast. The first is, what is the sea change that you are working towards?
Do you know where the word sea change comes from?
Where does it come from?
Well, that's really funny, because we just had an off-site meeting, and we were trying to think of what the tagline should be for Kelp Blue Biotech. And indeed, the word sea change is in there, because what we are trying to do is create a very big shift in how agriculture is approached. So away from intensive agriculture to more regenerative. And so that's the sea change that we want to see with our products on land. but where it actually comes from. It's from the last play that Shakespeare ever wrote. It's The Tempest. It was Ariel saying, "Full fathom 5, your father lies." So it's part of a Shakespeare play, and it's just amazing. There's a quote in there that's about the sea change of one of the characters.
Oh, amazing! That's brilliant. I didn't know that at all. So that's yeah. We'll try and do a bit more research and bring that out in some of our comms. And what's one thing that everybody could do to help you with that? Is this something that, because I guess you're not addressing a sort of consumer market. It's business to business sales with what you're doing. So what can everybody do to help move towards more regenerative systems?
I think be aware of where your food comes from and be aware of the food cycle if you have the time to be able to do that. So awareness is the key to everything. So if you have the time, just get up on where your food comes from and how it's grown.
Fantastic. And what gives you hope?
Oh, the youth of today. The team that I work with, the fact that you're doing this, you're rowing around the island with a team of women trying to hopefully break the record while gathering data that can be used for an enormous amounts of research. The initiatives that I see going on around the world, however small, about people who are trying to make a little impact, I have an enormous amount of hope.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Caroline, for joining us and giving us your time today and sharing some of your stories. I hope you'll follow us on our trip. I know I tried to persuade you to step into the boat yourself at one point.
I know I was, and I had almost signed up, but then I realized that if I am gone for that long, I think the team would probably, I don't know, they get along fine without me. But I like to say, when people say, "What's your role?" and I say, like, I help the frogs stay in the basket, because we have a whole lot of people that are so enthusiastic. But next year, I really want to do it.
Brilliant. Oh, well, careful, we might hold you to that. There might be a few others as well. I think there's a team building, perhaps. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, and thank you for your support from Kelp Blue for the Sea Change Row. It's going to be, we're just super excited to have your logo on our boat and to be able to share your stories as well through our platform. Thank you.
And we'll be tracking you every stroke of the way.
Perfect. Thanks.